A lot of people, I would venture to say, haven't seen this article right here from defensenews.com. Look at this. Look at the title of this article. Lawmakers, that's our lawmakers in Washington's District of Criminals. Lawmakers seek emergency powers for Pentagon's Ukraine war contracting. If this right here doesn't scare the stew out of you, or at least sober you up to smell the smelling salts of reality and wake up and go, what the frick is going on here? And make you ask the question, who's benefiting from all this? If I follow the money trail, what am I going to find at the end of that rainbow right there? Who's going to be in possession of the pot of gold that seems to be forming here? Lawmakers seek emergency powers for Pentagon's Ukraine war contracting. The Pentagon's Ukraine war contracting. They seek emergency powers. In other words, when you see that emergency powers, like an Emergency Powers Act or whatever, it's like, hey, this is a blank check, man. Look, we're just gonna make this blank check. Look, whatever you need, Congress says, whatever you need. Here, we'll give you a pen. We'll give you the blank check. Whatever. As a matter of fact, we're going to give you a whole book of checks. Just write them at will. Give the corporate welfare to the defense contractors, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, all these people. They really need your money. It says bipartisan legislation. Anytime you see bipartisan legislation, you are getting screwed both ways. Not just from Team Red, but also from Team Blue. Bipartisan. Why do people relax and go, oh, it's bipartisan? At least they all agree to screw us over. At least they all agree to economically terrorize them. At least they're in unison about something. I'm so glad. And then we applaud like little seals. Arr, 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 arr. I'm so glad. I'm so glad they're 100% united against us. Bipartisan legislation introduced into the Senate would grant the Pentagon wartime procurement powers. Blank check. Written against your future unborn generations. They're going to tap into their time and labor so that when they're working in the future, 20 years, that child who isn't born yet, 40 years from now, that great grandchild who isn't born yet, that every hour, every moment that they work, it's going to go toward the defense contractors, toward the international banking cartel, toward the Zio corporate elite. That's what they're doing. They're tapping into the future earnings of unborn human beings. Let that sink in. And the only way they can do that is through an unsound, dishonest fiat currency Ponzi scheme system. Bipartisan legislation introduced in the Senate would grant the Pentagon wartime procurement powers, allowing it to buy massive amounts of high priority munitions using multi-year contracts to help Ukraine fight Russia and to refill U.S. stockpiles. Boeing, Northrop Grumman, who are some of the other defense contractors? Raytheon are just going, yes, we got the politicians in our back pockets. Write that blank check to us. Follow the money. Who's benefiting? It ain't going to be you. You're not benefiting when you're paying 30, 40, 50% more for eggs and for meat and for chicken and for milk and for bread. You're not benefiting. You're not benefiting when you're paying double, soon to be triple, then quadruple for gas. No, you're not benefiting. Probably, I would venture to say the people of Ukraine. If you were to have a pen pal in Ukraine, hey, are you benefiting? Absolutely not. It's not the people of Ukraine or Russia or America or the UK that are going to be benefiting, but it's going to be the political puppets and their bankster masters, the strings they dangle from. Oh, thank you for the windfall. The defense contractors saying, yep. Come on. Blank check. Let's go. Not enough. Billions ain't enough. We got to go into trillions. Guys, back in the 70s and 80s, nobody was talking trillions. They were barely talking billions. They were talking in the 100 millions. Sometimes they'd graze a billion. Now we're talking about trillions all the time. Don't be surprised if one day they're starting to talk about quadrillions. That's how ridiculous it's getting. And again, the only reason we're talking like this is because of an unsound, dishonest money system that has no accountability in the banking realm. None. Zero. They own the printing presses, they own the treasuries, they own the bonds, they own everything, they own the government. They got congressmen and senators sitting in their back pockets just going, hey, just tell us what we need to do. Tell us what we need to say. Tell us what we need to write. We'll write those bills for you. Wartime procurement powers. There you go. Unbelievable. Senate Armed Services Committee Chairman Senator Jack Reed, Democrat, and Ranking Member Senator Jim Inhofe, Republican, proposed the legislation as an amendment to the Annual Defense Authorization Bill. Is that the NDAA? Which the U.S. Senate is expected to vote on in November. This is not working in the interests of anybody but the politicians, the corporate elite, and the Zio bankster and the defense contractors. It's literally doing nobody a bit of good except for the few at the top. The rest of us at the bottom, we're getting screwed over hand over fist. And people are freaking applauding this. Yes, just keep Ukraine safe. Look, I changed my social media profile. I've got the Ukraine flag. It's all good. Give us $15 a gallon gas. We'll pay it. Anything for Ukraine. Anything for, oh, great Vladimir Zelensky. We don't care if you wear high heels or not. We're going to support you. Because that's what we do, because we're brainwashed, brain-pickled lemmings from fake stream CIA infiltrated Operation Mockingbird MK Ultra Media. They've programmed you. They've wired you. They've cemented you into cognitive dissonance. You've got your ticket to the cult of personality. You got a ticket to ride, and you don't care. Which the Senate is expected to vote on in November. It was offered instead of the Critical Munitions Acquisitions Fund that the Pentagon and some lawmakers sought for the same purpose before the Senate appropriators rejected it. They're like, yeah, that's not enough. That's not enough. We need blank checks, man. Blank check. We got to be able to fill it in without congressional oversight. We got to be able to do this. We got to call the shots. We got to let ourselves know how much we are going to write to ourselves. This is like a kid getting into his dad's checkbook and giving himself an allowance for work that he didn't even do. Oh, it gets worse, man. The amendment, the text of which was released last week, offers multi-year contracting authorities typically reserved for Navy vessels and major aircraft. We are talking about high dollar amounts, guys. This is unlimited munitions. As drafted, it will let the Pentagon lock in purchases of certain munitions made by Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, BAE Systems, and this Kongsberg Defense and Aerospace over fiscal 2023 and 2024. It ain't going to stop there. They'll go into 25, 26. They intend to bankrupt this country, to bankrupt the UK, all to keep Ukraine safe. Or is it just this elaborate money laundering scheme? Just a question. A step aimed at encouraging manufacturers to expand production lines for sought-after munitions. The first casualty in any war is the truth. And as long as war makes money, as long as there's profits in war, there's little incentive. There's zero incentive for these people to create any kind of peace. The Pentagon would also be permitted to team with NATO, because we know NATO's our friend, to buy weapons for its members in mass quantities. How can people not see through this? This is as transparent as cellophane, as plastic wrap. You can see right through it. It's as transparent as a window looking from indoors to out. And for Ukraine-related contracts, the legislation would ease several key legal restrictions. Oh, we can't have legal restrictions. We can't have any barrier get in our way of the money that we want and the power that we're going to accumulate. Guys, they are taking our money and they are creating weapons of war that they will use against the people whose money they just took. They are beefing up their own munitions to point at us one day, to create the surveillance apparatus, to create the weapons of war that they can lob at us, to man the machines that will be pointed at you and me if we continue to resist this kind of tyranny. This is horrible. We're talking about weapons. We don't even know the kind of weapons that they really have. We don't know what kind of mass destruction they could actually do. They were worried about Iran with weapons of mass destruction. What about these guys? The owners and purveyors of the greatest munitions fields that anybody's ever known is going to go after little old Saddam Hussein because somebody told somebody that told some. I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who. You better not be messing around with Saddam Hussein. This sucks, man. Assigned lawmakers see the war dragging on. Oh, they want the war to drag on. They want never-ending war because it makes never-ending profits, man. This right here is a power and wealth transfer. Why are your prices going up? Because they're on the winning side of the trade and you're on the losing side of the trade. They get the benefit of the first dollars and they get to extract the value thereof. And then you get the dollars that are left over and the little value that's left. That's why. We got to help Ukraine. You want to help Ukraine, don't you? You're heartless if you don't want to help Ukraine. The Russians are moving in on the poor, helpless Ukrainians. You want to help them. You don't want to help them? Well, guess what? We're going to now drag your name through the mud, and we're going to tell everybody on social media what a horrible person you are because you don't want to help Ukraine. Although helping Ukraine is a euphemism for dump pallets of money into the pockets of those who own the defense contractors and the defense contracts. The intent of the legislation is to spur the Pentagon and the industry to move more aggressively. Listen to this, guys. It gets worse. You thought this article was bad now? Wait a second. By removing bureaucratic barriers with an eye not only on Russia, but the potential for a confrontation with China over Taiwan. We're talking about getting into a conflict not only with bare Russia, but also with China. What in the world? And this really isn't about them going after Russia and China. This is about them going after you and economically terrorizing you and bolstering their own munitions to be pointed against you and the surveillance apparatus and the police state to come against you. Oh, you objected to us taking your money? You objected to us becoming more powerful? You objected to blank checks and to tyranny? We're going to teach you, buddy, because we got all the power. It is time to stand on principle and not be moved. Period. Whether you want to call it wartime contract or emergency contract, we can't play around anymore, the aide said. We can't pussyfoot around with minimum sustaining rate buys of these munitions. It's hard to think of something as high on everybody's list as buying a ton of munitions for the next few years for our operational plans against China and continuing to supply Ukraine. Don't you think the Chinese have access to this article right here? And if they weren't privy to it before, they are now. It's like, what do you mean they're ramping up the war machine against us, China? Talk about poking somebody in the eye. Talking about being the bully in the playground going, oh yeah, we had slingshots last year. Now we're going to spears, and then we're going to go to swords on the playground. Then we're going to have AK-47s and AR-15s because we got to come against the first graders. We got to steal the first graders' lunch money so that all the fifth graders can have all the weaponry and be on this side and them on that side. We're going to install security cameras on the playground so we make sure we follow the steps of every single first grader because we don't trust them. And if they step out of line, if they say something that's not in accordance with the narrative, we're going to get them. The whole time they're saying, oh yeah, we're just accumulating weapons so that we can stave off any kind of rival school who might enter our playground. But the whole time they're going, no, this is against the first graders. We're stealing from the first graders so we can point our firearms with that we bought with that stolen loot against the first graders. Share this video with everybody you know. I would venture to say that a high percentage of Americans don't even know what's going on here. If we don't put a stop to this, the CBDCs, they're coming and ain't nothing we can do about it. Them eliminating and they're destroying the dollar. It's an intentional destruction of the dollar so they can create their own CBDCs, digital currency, so that we will be 100% controlled slaves. Right now we have a little bit of autonomy because we can do things in the darkness away from the, no, not darkness. We can do things in the light away from the prying eyes of the government. When they bring on digital currency and digital assets and everything goes digital, every last bit of freedom, where you go, who you interact with, what you bought, what you sold, never having yard sales again, never giving that 5-year-old 5 or 10 or 15 or $20 in their birthday card. Never grandma leaving the grandkids a little stash when she goes away. It's all going to be digitized. And all that fiat currency that you got parked in those dollar bills, they'll all become worthless when they transfer all that over. And if you question them, well, they have stockpiles and stockpiles and stockpiles as far as you can see that they will never be able to blow up in 100 lifetimes to deploy against you. That's how serious this is. I can't think of anything more serious. I can't think of anything more destructive. I can't think of another example to show you the criminal intent of all Democrats, Jack Reed, and all Republicans, Jim Inhofe. All the Republicans are for us. Think again. All the Democrats, they're for freedom and they're for protecting democracy. Think again. It's all BS. It's all hogwash. All the government does is lie to you. They're trying to control your mind. Mainstream media is totally in the pocket of the governments, the propaganda arm for the military-industrial complex who's trying to beef up the munitions against everybody. It's not about China and Russia. It's not about the Ukrainian conflict. It's about they hate your guts. It's about they want to steal from you. It's about they want to extract the time and laboring energies of your unborn posterity. Time to wake up.